Why does this always feel like the Brady Bunch? Like we're supposed to be looking at the other squares. Till
Right.
the one lady is there with this fellow.
I can't with you.
And they knew it was much more than a hunch.
All right, y'all ready? All right, let's see.
That's the way we all became the biracial bunch. Biracial bunch.
Don't y'all laugh at him. Do not encourage him. All right, everybody. Welcome to Do Better, Honey, Do Better 24/7 with Eb Ready. Today we are starting our Being Mixed conversation, which is a series. I have to put that out there now because, you know, we saw how that went last time. So I'm going to get everybody to introduce themselves. I want to start with the wonderful Black Fluid Poet.
Hey, Black Fluid Poet. What's up, y'all? What am I supposed to say?
Tell us how wonderful you are.
Oh, you don't know. Podcaster, Patreon contributor. Let's see, about to finish grad school of creative writing.
Awesome.
And I teach gender, sexuality, and critical race theory to kids.
And where do you teach them at? This is awesome.
I'm a traveling teaching artist, so I do workshops. I get called to schools, juvenile detention centers, colleges, and I go do anywhere from 2 hours to 2 weeks, depending on the city.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Micah. Look, there's two Micahs.
Oh, there is.
Yes, but we're gonna get King Doozy Boo too. Yes, there's
okay.
Micah female and Micah, and then there's two. Well, there's two Johns, so we'll just use Micah and one of y'all just start talking. So.
Okay. Well, on TikTok right now, I'm known for talking about cultural appropriation and K-pop right now. I do talk about mixed topics. Definitely started with that. And by day, I just do lashes in my own lash booth. So, yes.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Okay, Mr. King Doozy Boo.
My name is Micah. I started TikTok talking about being mixed, being biracial, but by day I am a banker. So
Interesting. I never would have pegged you for a banker. I thought something, I don't know why I thought outdoorsy, like athletic. Dominique?
Hi, I'm Dom. I also talk about biracial issues, Black issues, colorism, things like that. By day, I'm a recent college grad. I just graduated from the University of Michigan, go Blue. But now that just means that I'm unemployed. So yeah.
And in debt.
Exactly.
Well, getting over the hurdle of graduating is a major feat anyway, you know? So you deserve a little break. Q?
Sorry, you're muted. What's up, guys? My name is
thought you were gonna jump in, sorry.
It's cool. My name is Kadri Ismail, or known as Comrade Q on TikTok. I talk about anything referring or with racism or oppression of other groups of people. I'm a pro-Black socialist. I live in the U.S. and glad to be here. So
awesome. I'm definitely glad to have you here again. So I appreciate you.
Yep.
If John Daniel joins, we'll just get him to introduce himself when he comes in, but we're just going to jump right into it. The first thing I kind of wanted to touch base on, just so everybody can get a little bit of an understanding of us ourselves, is I know a lot of people are curious or have things to say about how biracial, mixed people identify. So I kind of wanted to just touch base on a little bit of how everybody identifies. Dom?
I personally identify as Black because racially I am Black. I usually don't bring up that I'm mixed unless it's relevant to the conversation. It's not to hide anything or to claim anything that I'm not. It's just that we all know in the past that we've actually been ridiculed kind of for talking about being mixed a lot. So if it's not relevant, it's just not necessary. And racially, I'm Black. So that's usually what I go by.
Anybody want to jump in?
I'm the same exact way. I'll just say that I'm Black because I am, unless it's relevant to the topic. I don't really mention that I'm mixed. So yeah, same way. Or biracial is fine too. But I don't really like biracial because I only have one race. But people usually by that mean that you have two parents of different races. So I'll sometimes use that as well. So
Makes plenty of sense. I'm just kind of letting y'all jump in whenever you want to on this one.
Okay, I identify as being Black. I'm the same as the others with this. I mean, I only bring it up when it's relevant to the conversation. When I bring up being Black, it's usually relevant to the conversation. So when I introduce myself, I'm Black.
Same.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. What about you, Micah?
I mean, I usually just say that I'm biracial. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I only bring it up when it's relevant to the conversation too. So I grew up in a situation where I was like only allowed to identify as white, which is strange. So, but I mean, now as an adult, I just say I'm biracial.
I think I wanted to lead with that because I think that plays, and I'm gonna say on TikTok a major part in I think how some people perceive the messages that we may or may not speak on. And I find like I've always identified as Black, but I know what I look like too. You know what I'm saying? So like I'll say mixed, but I make it clear, you can't say Black to some people because then they have to make it a point that you are mixed, and it kind of takes away from the conversation. So have any of you guys had any, I guess, kickback or anything like that in regards to your content, your messages, anything, because maybe you're not Black enough or
yeah, so with me, it's funny, especially when the white people, I get most kickback from them. It's like anytime I talk about racism or anything that makes them like have any kind of white fragility, they say, oh, but you're white, so like you can't experience racism. But then it's funny because like at any other time that I'm just existing, it's like I get racism from them. So it's like pick and choose which one you want. So yeah, to kind of use it as like as a way to undermine my experience as a Black person in America. So.
absolutely. Anybody else before we move on? Y'all are so quiet. Just jump in.
Okay, I'm going. So for my page, as I said, I talk about cultural appropriation and K-pop. So that's really in Korea. So, but a lot of Black fans don't like that I call out their favorite groups or favorite celebrities. And they kind of have told me that, I'm not Black enough to talk about the issue. It's always brought up to tell me that I cannot talk about Black culture because of my skin tone as well. I know I'm giving off Casper right now, but I never I never consider that to be melanin to be the equatable to Blackness because we come in all shades. So we're coming like variety. So that's why that's the kind of kickback I get, at least.
I think a lot of people associate Black people with like dark skins and things like that because like a lot of us came from Africa, from places where there weren't light skins. You didn't have Africans with blonde hair. So a lot of Africans that are in America are darker. So when they see us, they associate like us with more whiteness because we're not as dark as like average Black people that came from Africa during slavery.
I've also found too that I think I get the side eye a lot because I think there's people like us too who toggle between when, you know, being non-Black is acceptable or convenient for them, and then when being Black is acceptable, if that makes sense.
You're saying like they pick and choose when they use their like their light skin privilege or whatever.
Well, that too, but also I'm well aware that I have privileged places, you know, like where I live at and where I come from, I've always been Black. Like that's just been what it is. But I know I have privilege when I go other places. But I have literally seen people who will so much as deny their Blackness because it's easier, but then turn around in the same breath when it's convenient for them, they're Black.
Yeah.
And I think that's like something that I think is a stigma for us. John?
I blame Rachel Dolezal for all of this.
I'm with you.
I really like, stay with me on this, but I really believe that Rachel Dolezal was a watershed moment for people who look like us, because it caused such a rift in the Black community, this caucasity that Rachel had, that now I believe the side eyes are happening more frequently because of that. Like, I think that it's, you know, are you or is this just a transracial thing? Like, are you really for real Black? Because I don't know. And, you know, it's like a suntan and some cornrows could actually make that happen. But I think that's part of the trap is I've always felt like I had to prove, you know, to a lot of people that I was Black. They're usually not my generation, right? Because Gen X, there was no discussion of biracial anything. You was Black or you were white, you had to pick, and that was that, and you stayed in your lane. So I think like in the late 90s, early 2000s, all of a sudden it's like, well, you're not really Black. And there's this like double talk of, you know, well, if you don't look Black, you're not Black. But 20 years before that, you know, if you had a Black parent, that's it. You know what I mean? And now there's these nuances that are happening where people are like, well, actually, you're not Black anymore. Like, according to the new standards, right? We're not talking blood quantum anymore. It's about what you really look like. And you're, you know, you can be ambiguous. So, you know, but I'm like, old Black women see it all the time. Why can't you? Like, old Black women will be like, who's Black, your mom or your dad? And I'm like, my dad. And they go, mm-hmm. But nobody else can see it. For me, I think it is somewhat of a generational thing. But I think the gatekeepers have gotten more stern, because look how many stories come out of different professors and intellectuals and academics and all these people who were riding this wave of being of color. Now we find out that they're actually white and they've just been wearing a tan and a fake name. So it puts a spotlight, I believe, on people like me who, I mean, I don't know. So Rachel fucked it up for everybody. This is why we can't have nice things.
Did you want to say something?
I was gonna say, I think that I have a few things. I don't necessarily think that it's new rules and regulations that are coming about when it comes to race. I think that race as a social construct was poorly designed in the first place, and now it's just coming to light how poorly designed it was. Like, I feel like people in the past didn't really have an understanding, because if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said, oh, race is based on genetics. You know, I didn't know that Black people could be like, I didn't know about Afro Latino people or anything like that. Like, so I think it all has to do with perception and how it's shifting as well. But I also think that where people forget to add nuance is that people like you, John, have had these experiences where you have been seen as Black your entire life. So just because now we're having this new wave of people blackfishing and people like Rachel doesn't mean that you didn't have those experiences. And I feel like that's where people get mixed up. They're just like, well, now look at Kylie Jenner, like she looks like she could be Black technically, so you're not Black. And it's like, that's not the experience that you've had your entire life. So I think people need to be careful when they're making generalizations, because it really is about perception.
Yeah, I think the ambiguity you experience really just highlights how much of a social construct race is. And when it comes to race, like Black people, or like being racially Black is also is unique in itself, because when we were brought from Africa, you know, a lot of our like where we came from was cut. So like when you say like I'm Black, it also applies both ethnically and racially. Because on an ethnic sense, like it implies that you came from Africa. Whether, and like if for like a white person, for example, if they said like, oh, I'm white, well, it's like, okay, like you can probably trace your roots back, you know, to like Germany or Lithuania or, you know, wherever. So yeah, like that just highlights how much of like a social construct race really is.
So I just got a message from John. He may or may not be joining us. He's actually still at work. So we're just going to go on ahead. If he comes in, he comes in. So how do you, I definitely want to touch on like the different experiences that everybody has had growing up, and how that affects like either how you identify now, or like the things you were saying as far as perception from people.
I wanted to add this in earlier. We were talking a little bit about light skin privilege, and I want to talk more about texturism and featureism as well, because for me, growing up, people never told me that I wasn't Black, really. Like it happened sometimes, but I grew up in a predominantly white area, so to them, I was Black, you know? However, I think that also me having type 4 hair, because my hair is usually natural, it's not usually in wigs, that played a role as well in people knowing that I'm Black. And me having Afrocentric features, people know that I'm Black for sure, even though I'm light skinned. So most of the pushback that I've gotten has been on the internet for the most part, honestly. And I don't know if that's the same for all of you, especially like if you have grown up in a predominantly white area or you live in a predominantly white area, then it's definitely on the internet where you're getting the most of it.
Well, where I grew up, like I lived in the, it was literally more white people, but I wouldn't say predominantly white, if that makes any sense. But I've always been Black. I have never, ever in my life been white to white people, not even white people I just meet. So to get on the internet and have like, you're not even Black. You're what? Well, I done been me for 42 years, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's weird. It's definitely a whole different animal on social media.
Well, see, for me, like in my adolescence, right? My mom moved us to a predominantly Italian neighborhood. It was predominantly poor and Italian. And my mom was like, look, because I've always been a nonviolent person. Like I think my last fist fight, I think I was in the 7th grade. So, and I lost. So my mom, when she moved us to this rougher neighborhood, she was like, look, if they don't ask, don't tell them. Because I was always like, yeah, no, my dad's Black, I'm Black, always. Right? Because I think Black people growing up in my family, they were like, if people ask, you tell them you're Black. Like, don't hide for nobody. And so I was always really proud of that. And then when we moved to this Italian neighborhood, my mom was like, look, don't say anything. Like I had wavy hair like them, olive skin like them. They haven't, come to terms with the Moors being in Italy. So, you're just, if they think you're Italian, don't correct them, and that lasted for like, I think 3 years growing up, going through middle school. But I think, I don't know. It's like, for me, I think it's more about there's identity and there's ascription, and ascription is what the other people around me are going to put on me, and that's their reality. That's what's true for them. But it's important for me to hold on to seeing myself as Black, because it's like all I have. You know what I mean? It's if I was to stop identifying as Black, I would just walk out into the world ambiguous. And I feel like that the identity starts at home. I feel like if I give that up, then I just let other people ascribe onto me whatever they're going to ascribe onto me. Then I don't have that stance in society that I view the world from. If I stop seeing myself as Black and start seeing myself as ambiguous, I'm afraid, not that it's ever happened, but I'm afraid it's going to put a wall between me and contemporary problems in Black America. I feel like I feel like in a way it's going to mentally separate me from the issues that are a part of me, even if I don't experience them on the day-to-day basis. I don't get followed around stores most of the time. I usually get followed around stores because I'm big, but I don't get followed around stores. I don't get randomly pulled over, so like I do have privilege. But if I was to take that privilege and say, okay, I'm just biracial, I'm not Black, because I don't have those experiences, I feel like that's a slippery slope of losing people that are a part of the community. I hope this is making sense, but because I don't normally talk about it in depth like this.
Well,
I think it's important to realize, or to also think about, like I mentioned earlier, like being Black is both an ethnic thing and also a racial thing. So while racially, like, you might be ambiguous to some people, you might be Black to some people, you will always be ethnically Black. You will always have ancestors that came from Africa. So no one can take that away from you, no matter what you look like. So you can always identify yourself as Black because of that aspect.
So how do y'all feel? I don't know if y'all have heard this, but I've gotten this a lot on the internet lately. And I actually first saw it under somebody else's comment section. It was a white woman talking about her child, which is another topic we'll get into. But in the comments, they were saying, she's not Black, your child's not Black, because they put being biracial into this whole separate, like it's a race on its own. They were talking about ancestors and saying they're not her ancestors. She's not Black, she's mixed. And I do not understand any rationale behind that shit. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, being mixed is just a subgroup, like a more specific categorization of being Black. That's it. Like, so those people are dumb as hell. Very
much. Look, let me stop real quick because one of my favorite people jumped in. I'm going to get him to introduce himself. Sean.
Is it working yet? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all see me? Okay, sorry.
It's all good. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Hey everyone, my name is Sean Zolik von Balkenberg. I'm currently a grad student at IU, and just like an avid TikTok user. And I've seen all of your profiles, and I've been like stalking you all, and I love all of your content so much.
You've got to be like one of the sweetest people ever. I swear, you're amazing. So we were just basically on the conversation aspect where, some people say that when you are mixed, you are not either Black nor white. You are mixed as if it's itself. Like, they cancel each other out.
I think we've had this discussion before, yeah. Like, your race somehow means that you're not valid in either aspect of being Black or white. You're not accepted because you're not socialized in either sphere, yet you can bridge both of those identities within society. Like, you have to force yourself to make that connection. If you don't identify with the white crowd, you make that connection.
So, Mike, I kind of wanted to, King Doozy Boo, since there's two Micahs, I wanted to bring up, I'll to talk about when we talk about the family aspect of it. If you want to start with that part of the conversation, like how that played into your identity, how you feel about things now, what makes you, what experiences led you to feel that you should speak on the things that you do now, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, I grew up in an all white neighborhood, an all white family. Like, I wasn't ever associated with my Black family ever, and wasn't allowed to know them. So I was always told to identify as white and then say, like I'm mixed with like Native American or something else. So it was something was like a secret or like hidden, which is strange. Now as an adult, it's strange to like look back on that and be like, I mean, it's just weird, but I never fit in with my white family. I didn't look like them. So for me, I don't know. I think now as an adult, I experienced a lot of seclusion and isolation as a kid. And so as an adult, I think now I feel way more that I identify with my Blackness than I do white, which it's just the way it is for me. Like, I just feel that I will always identify more with the Black community than I do with the white community.
Is there anybody else who had a similar experience?
Yeah, that was me too. I grew up in like in a white neighborhood. Yeah, I probably knew like one other Black person maybe, but like, so I was always like considered Black, but I never really understood what race was. Even like in elementary school, a girl called me chocolate, and I went home. I was like, Dad, like, what does that mean? And he's like, next time I call her a cracker. And I was like, all right, like, so whatever that means. And yeah, so like same for me, but like I felt exclusion from from Black people in the Black community, because I felt, because of media, that like I wasn't Black because of the culture that I was brought up with. So I invalidated my own Blackness because of the way that I acted. So I would get nervous around Black people because I feared being judged really around Black people. But then it took me until really I went to college, honestly, and then I realized like, your Blackness isn't based upon necessarily how you act, but the color of your skin and where your ancestors come from.
In my experience, when I was younger, like before middle school, I was excluded from the Black community a little bit by like my Black friends at school. But once I hit middle school, I felt like I was too Black. So my entire mission was to fit in with white people. So I will never truly know if I was excluded from the Black community during that time period, because I wouldn't even try with them, because I didn't want to be associated with that. I didn't want to be seen as Black. So it was a little bit different for me, like just always feeling too Black. And even now, I rarely have experiences where I don't feel Black enough. And I think that's just because of how I grew up. Like, we've all been talking about it. Like, it's been instilled in me that I was too Black my entire life. So it would take a lot for me to just all of a sudden think that now I'm not Black enough because random people on the internet say so,
Do you think you felt like you were too Black because of your hair, or because of like how you like acted around people?
It was definitely my hair, because like I said, like I have a wig on now for everybody. My hair is like 4B, and my parents had absolutely no idea how to take care of it. So like I just did a big chop 2 years ago, and since then is the first time I've ever been able to take care of my hair in my entire life. So that was definitely the biggest thing with my hair.
Okay. Yeah, it was opposite for me. It was like, wasn't because of my physical appearance, but because of like how I acted. So I was just curious.
How you acted? What do you mean by that?
So like growing up around white people, I adopted whiteness in like how I would talk, how I would like handle myself. And so I felt like because of like how I acted around like in just society, like I acted more white. So like that made me more white somehow, even though like that wasn't the case. So then like I would get like really, like I mentioned, like really nervous around Black people because I felt like I had to act a certain way. So
Like to
and
be,
whether that's
you
what's
feel?
that?
So you had to act a certain way to be like accepted?
Yeah. So that would be like like stereotypical things like the language I used, or like if I was good at basketball or not, or what my hair looked like, anything that like stereotypically would be associated with Black people. I felt like I had to do that to be considered Black myself.
That makes a lot of sense. Michael, what about you? The other Michael.
Okay, so I was like listening to all of y'all's experiences, and it's crazy because I feel like I've experienced almost everything. But I guess I was lucky enough to experience both communities while growing up, because with the area I was growing up in when I was, born up till about 12 years old, it was predominantly Black. So during that whole time, I realized that I looked like Snow White. So a lot of the time I had to like try and be more Black, because the other girls at the school would tell me that I had to act Black, and they would tell me that I wasn't acting Black enough. And so when we moved to, the new area we live in now, I was completely shocked because it was mostly white people. And I had not really been around just white people besides maybe some of my family. So when I first got here, I was still straightening my hair because I was trying to get a relaxer out because my mom did not know how to do my hair. But I wanted to have straight hair because the other Black girls at the school, had straight hair. And I was like, okay, that's the epitome of beauty. So I need to straighten my hair. So she would take 2 long hours to do my hair every week. So, but with that, every time I did wear my hair curly, when my mom was like, hey, you should just try it out. It's beautiful. Halle Berry, all this and that. I would go to the school, and it became like this thing for the, most of the people that were in my classes, just to constantly make fun of my hair. People would scream Lion King outside of like the bus, like all of that. I remember in a few classes that people would throw things in my hair, like some paper, all of that. And I had to go to the bathroom to like take it out of my hair. I remember all of that, and it was just kind of like constant harassment, either if I had like, if I did have my curly hair out, or it was straight, because humidity, it made it puffy sometimes. And I was really embarrassed. So I kind of kept to myself. And I think in that point in my life, I just kind of realized that, clearly I'm not, Black enough for Black people, or, but I'm definitely not being treated like I'm white to white people. So, I think everybody here has had like at least one identity crisis or something in their life where they're like, man, I'm not fitting in with anybody. So that's my experience, at least. So I'll just stop it at that.
So I want to kind of double back to like the convo where John brought up Rachel. I didn't never say her last name right. Dolezal, whatever the lady name is. And the whole concept of being transracial. And I don't know why this is a thing now, because it's like not real. It's like that word was made for like adoptions. So have y'all seen like an influx of people claiming like being transracial, and how do you guys feel about it?
Wait, real quick, can we just like clarify what transracial means? Because I'd never heard of that.
Born, used, from what I've understood, born white, but taken on this persona of Blackness because that's the community that you feel closer to, the culture they maybe grew up around. And so like, Rachel Dolezal, for example, grew up with Black siblings. And so she always felt closest to
Wait a minute.
Blackness. She
Did
didn't
she?
get along. What?
Did she? Because I never heard that.
Oh, yeah. She had like 3 siblings that were Black. They were all adopted, but they were Black. And
That makes it worse, though.
she felt close to them. And so, like, she kind of gravitated towards the Black community, you know, sued her way into Howard. And like, once she was at Howard, all of a sudden braids went in and she never came back. So, yeah, transracial, that she transitioned into this race.
So the explanation that I've gotten is similar to that, worded differently. Being basically, they not transitioned into a race they felt closer to, but as if they literally said that they were born the wrong race. I was white, but I'm Black. I was born in the wrong, I don't know. It's weird as hell, but apparently it's a thing. It's like all over TikTok, and I've seen it I'm like, I've never heard of this until recently.
So can everyone hear me still? Sorry, I'm still syncing my mic. Awesome.
I will say this, Sean. Someone just texted me, said it's a little hard to hear you on the YouTube side though.
Let me go. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, cool. There we go. I was on the wrong mic. So I actually learned about this term transracial in my anthropology of race course in grad school this year, and it really blew me away because I didn't realize that it's people do misunderstand like the trans identity and how it's like you feel like you're in another body, but I feel like transitive living within 2 social spaces at once. So I was born, I mean, obviously Black, but I was socialized white, and I was always told through microaggressions, you sound white, you sound so like eloquent. I'm like, what does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be white in this sense? So I'm gonna show off my parents in like little Polaroid photos, but you can see me in the background. My parents are crazy and sweet, but always being socialized as like that one Black kid in a group of white people. I never really saw race until I knew that I was being treated differently because of my race, so I knew I could socially exist in this sphere, but I would still experience the colorism that I... What?
Yeah, I think we're losing you. Is he frozen for you guys?
I can't hear him anymore.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's all good. You go ahead and get yourself situated. I'll get somebody else to chime in real quick, okay? If you can hear me. Maybe not.
I kind of wanted to add in something. I forgot to say this. I also changed the way I started talking as well. I don't know if that's ever been a thing for anybody else, but like having a certain accent around certain people's code switching, basically. But I just wanted to say that this whole transracial thing, it just makes me feel like it's an excuse for people to blackfish. Yeah, I don't like it. And that's how I recently was talking about someone blackfishing, and they were Korean. So there is a lot of issue with that, and people were questioning my Blackness and telling me I didn't look Black enough compared to her, which doesn't make sense because clearly their idea of Blackness is not the original. So of course they're not going to consider me Black enough or anything like that. They're just looking at skin tone. So that's all I have to say.
So there's a question in the YouTube chat, and it says, how is saying that I was supposed to be born Black or white differently from saying I was supposed to be male or female?
No.
Well, race is a social construct, so like that's like race shouldn't exist, like the whole concept. So if racism wasn't a thing, then like people wouldn't say like, oh, I was, supposed to be born a certain race or whatever. So
I feel like we also have to address that being presumed as a male and being presumed as a female in society, those are heavy intersectional identities, whereas race trumps everything, if that makes sense. Like the difference between privilege and with a white man and a white woman isn't that much, but the difference between like a Black man and a white man, it's a huge difference in privilege. So gender, although like it also is a social construct, it doesn't have the same societal implications that race does. So you can't just do that. And also transracial is used for adoptees as well. I think that was mentioned. So
Yeah.
just so no one's confused, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, no, like
Yeah.
that's anytime I've ever heard the term transracial, I've always used in regards to adoption. And I also feel like being born the wrong gender is so different because, you know, when you're born, you don't even know whether it is a social construct or it doesn't exist. You don't even know what race is, but you know that you know, there's a difference between female and male and how you feel. You know what I mean? I don't think they're even comparable at all, but it's mad fucking weird that it's like, I think it's a trend to be, to look racially ambiguous or to say that you're mixed, because I feel a lot of people want to be closer to Blackness or stake claim on certain things that should not be appropriated. Like, I could wear braids because my great great granddaddy's Black. Like, you're mad weird. That's not how this works.
Right. And like also being trans too, like that's not that's not a social construct. That's like literally like like you can physically see like, all right, like I'm in the wrong body, like with race. Like, I mean, like, yeah, like I mentioned, and y'all mentioned too, you know, it's made up, you know. So the only reason why we still talk about it is because there's systemic racism and things like that still affect us today. So.
Absolutely. So
I think that you can I was just saying, I think we have to be a little careful when we talk about like trans identity, because when we do reduce it to just being in the wrong body, it's kind of invalidating. And the reason why you can't be transracial is because it's not just about being in the wrong body. Do you know what I'm saying? Like gender expression is so different, and you cannot conform to the gender binary, but you can't just be like, oh, I don't conform to race in the same way either. So that's important to note as well.
absolutely. So have y'all heard about this whole anti-mixed, like, I don't know what I want to call it. This is something new to me too. I heard there are other biracial people who also say that if you identify with one of your races out of your racial mixture more than the other, that you're anti-mixed. Literally, like, and I don't know what that means. Like, what? But apparently it's a thing. I mean, am I the only one that's like heard of that? Well, I know some of y'all did because I sent a video. But I mean, have y'all heard that before? It's like,
I haven't heard that, but like, I mean, if like I identify more with like Black people in the Black community just because I look Black, and that's how I'm literally treated in society. So like there's no getting around that. Like you can clearly see it. So it wouldn't make sense if I was like, oh yeah, like identify more with white people, you know, because they treat me a different way than Black people do because I look Black.
I also feel like while we may say we're Black because that is how we identify, that is, you know, a lot. I know for myself, that's a lot of who I am. That's not negating the fact that I have a whole white mother. Like, I'm not trying to say, go around acting like I have two Black parents. That's not who does that. I just think it's weird to say that because you identify more so with one is that you're anti-whole yourself.
I've realized that with a lot of groups of people like this, it's people that are upset because they're not racially Black and they don't want other mixed people to be able to have that experience. So if they can't have that experience, then no one can have that experience. Then we're all just mixed. And another thing that people forget too is that saying mixed or biracial, I mean, I think of mixed as black and white. I think that most people do, but saying biracial doesn't mean black and white. So we're not even going to have the same experiences, even if we all like phenotypically looked half and half, if you can look half and half, because we're not all black and white. So yeah.
I'm trying to like toggle screens and mute and unmute myself. But so another thing, as far as you guys' first experience with racism, like how old, how young, how, to what extent?
I think I was in like second or third grade. I was at Catholic school. My brother and I were the only like ethnically anything there. It was completely white. It was like a culture shock, but having someone use the N-word, knowing it was incorrect at that age, and being invalidated and gaslit by my art teacher saying, no, it's okay, he just said it once, it's not bad.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Y'all can just chime in too.
I definitely remember being called the N-word as a child, but maybe that was just me. I feel like most people who are biracial or mixed get called that at least once. At least when you're young, you get odd looks at your parents and everything. Like they know, they know.
Absolutely. Mine was with my mother's family, like as far back as I can remember. But one of the major things, and I say this a lot, because I think people sometimes invalidate the racism that we have experienced because we don't necessarily look the way they think we should look to be on the receiving end. But I literally, I'm 42, I grew up in a different time. Literally the KKK burned a cross in my yard. So I find it, I do have a problem when people try to invalidate experiences that we have because, yeah, we get them.
You said your experiences have been happening for a while. I'm trying to think of my first experience, and it might even, like, I feel like it counts. My mother's father stopped talking to her after he found out she was pregnant by a black man. So before I was even born, like a family member is already not speaking to me or my mother or my father because I'm half black. So
I was 5 when I went to my mom is white. When I went to my mom's sister's house, and spent like a week during summer vacation out there. And I remember after I came home, there was a bunch of strange stuff happening while I was there. People were treating me kind of weird. But I really noticed it when I came back home and my mother was in an argument with her sister on the phone and screaming and cursing her out, calling her all kinds of everything but her name, but a child of God. And when she hung up the phone, I said, Mom, what's wrong? And she said, she doesn't want you to come over there in the summer because you get too dark. And I was like, I don't understand. She's like, John, because they don't want any black people in her neighborhood. She's afraid of what the neighbors are going to say. Fuck that bitch. And I didn't feel any way about it. Like it didn't compute. Like I didn't understand. But then like the second time I think I had really experienced it was when I was dating a girl. I think I was 13 and I was dating a girl and everything was fine until I happened to mention having a black father. And then all of a sudden, her parents didn't want me around the house. She couldn't come to the phone. And then finally I saw her. She's like, my parents don't want me to be with you because you're black. And I was supposed to feel hurt, but I had been struggling for so long to be seen as a black person. I was kind of excited. I ain't even gonna lie. I was like, I'm too black to date this white girl. Yes. I mean, I was hurt. I was hurt because I saw the struggle in her face, having to choose between feeling like she was in love with me and loyalty to her parents. And like, she didn't care. Like she wanted to be with me no matter what. But I was like, bitch, you need to go home before you end up homeless. Like, I don't think you know how this works. Like white kids don't realize it's fun to be Black until it's time to be Black. And so like, I broke up with her because I was like, I ain't coming between you and your parents. Like, they will put your ass. I've seen what white people did to my mother. Like, they cut her the fuck off. And I loved her, and I saw the way my mom struggled. You know what I mean? Absolutely struggled being cut off from the white community as soon as she married a Black man. And so like, I was afraid for my girlfriend. So, I broke up with her. She was heartbroken and the whole thing, and it was horrible, and I felt horrible. But I think I understood that's just how things worked. It was like 1983, and I was like, this is just how shit works, and yeah.
The sad thing is that's still how things work. That's the disappointing.
I had a girlfriend in 8th grade, and I never met her parents because they're racist too, and they wouldn't approve of me. So I feel you on that.
Okay, I was about to agree. I agree with both of you guys. But I do remember a guy in high school that was white and Mexican, and he only lived down the street. So I went over there like for the first time meeting his parents, and they were fine with me at first. They were cool, and spent some time over there. And then I left, back home, and then I remember him texting me later that day. And telling me that I couldn't come back over. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, they didn't think you were Black. So that was interesting for me. I was like, clearly you're not gonna change what's gonna go on between you and me. So I was like, it's just not gonna work. You're gonna choose your parents over me, and that's fine.
I'm too Black. Yes.
I can't. The thing I think that bothers me so much is, me and John are obviously older, and we grew up in a different time, right? So I'm just saying we's both a little on the higher end of age than everybody else. But I grew up in a small town where Black and white kids were friends at school, but it wasn't no Black people going over to white people's houses. You know what I mean? So I automatically knew there was only like one white girl whose house I ever went to. That's just because her mother was a saint. Everybody else was kind of like, oh, I love you, but never could I stay at their house. And the sad thing is that while it may not be as extreme as like crosses in the yard, like, it's still the same shit going on. Like the stories I hear, people you guys' age or younger saying, I'm like, there's no reason we still here. Like, it's 20 years ago. Why are we still here? But on that note, I have a question. So can mixed people be racist? That's if everybody subscribes to the notion of, if you are Black, you cannot be racist. So how does that apply to us?
I think like you have to also like remember, like, just because you're mixed doesn't necessarily mean that you're Black racially. So if you're not, then I would say yes. If you are racially Black, then I would say no. So I think there's two sides to it.
Makes sense.
I think Afro-pessimism, I think anti-Blackness can happen to anyone in the Black community, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if it happens more often with biracial people. I think that there's a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot of, there are issues that some of us have had with feeling excluded from the Black community because we were held in such, all right, like I'm Gen X. I don't know if it's happening for Gen Z or anybody else, but in Gen X, the lighter you were, the better you got treated in the Black family. And that's just traditionally, that's how it was, because there was going to be more opportunities for you. You were going to be more likely to succeed. You had an easier time navigating. So you were held to a higher esteem in the house. You know, I was always called handsome every time I walked in the room. I was always, you know, girls always, like my aunts were always like, oh, he got that good hair, girl. He got that good hair. You don't need a hot comb on his hair or nothing. And so Black girls were attracted to me more. It caused rift in other kids. And so rather than navigating those uncomfortable feelings for myself, it would have been easier for me to just be like, man, fuck Black people. I ain't with that shit. Don't call me Black. You know what I mean? Because of that exclusion that I felt with other Black boys. I got teased a lot, but I kind of rolled with it. You know what I mean? Like I got called Snowy, Whitey, you know, Casper, but I was still in their group. You know what I mean? And so for me, I was just grateful to be a part of the group. But I think being mixed, I think sometimes right off the bat, I found that I'm a lot more extroverted around Black people to prove I'm not bougie. They always make the light-skinned Black person the bougie one. And that's something I've always hated, is like this stereotypical, you know, sedity, you know, fair hair, fair skin Black person who's always like, oh no, we don't eat that, you know, oh, I'm not going in this neighborhood. You know what I mean? So like, it's almost a caricature or a trope that we're just like, oh, Black people don't like us because we look white. And it's not that simple. You know, it's not that simple, because I think for a long time I understood the resentment. I understood the, you know, holding me as suspect. I understood how many mixed people do assimilate into white culture and avoid defending Blackness in any arena, kind of hold it to themselves. Or like homegirl from TikTok who strives real hard to assimilate herself to whiteness, to associate herself with whiteness and her republicanism.
Don't get me started on her.
But like, I understand that mentality. I don't justify it, I don't defend it, but I get it. I get it.
Can I don't get it. I literally don't get it. I don't understand any part of, I don't know, maybe it's just because I am so proud of all of my Blackness, even if you can't see it. You know what I'm saying? That I can't understand. I mean, I get being raised in a predominantly white household area. I understand that. But the lengths in which some of these people, i.e. the person you were just talking about, will go to, it's almost as if you sit here mixed but Black presenting with your braids in your hair, talking solely against the Black community when you are a whole half Black person. I don't understand that. I don't.
I think it's the same way that I worked really hard to study Black history, to wear dashikis, to do anything I had to do to be at the front line of the protest. You know what I mean? So there is no doubting where I stood, because I still, even at 51 years old, I still feel very insecure in a room full of Black people, because I have to make sure that I'm liked, that I'm accepted. You know what I mean? It's still an issue that I've been working on for a while, but I think to that same extent, someone who is half Black or Black, growing up in an all-white community, growing up with a white parent, growing up in white culture, I think she's overcompensating to be accepted by her white community, and being at the forefront, being at the head, so that there's no doubt of where she stands. You know what I mean? And I feel sorry for her, you know what I mean? Because she's missing out, but I understand her navigating this minefield to avoid hurt.
Yes, Dom. And I think I was going to bring up something else and I forgot. Hold on. Lost my whole train of thought. Okay, so I also feel that, like you were saying, like fully Black people who do grow up in predominantly white neighborhoods, or even with a white family, definitely have a similar to being mixed experience, especially in regards to like the Black community. With you're Black, but you're not Black enough because you speak a certain way. You have always
Yeah, people did not like that one on Twitter. They did not like that I said that.
Did you post it on
Twitter? No, someone else posted it, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like viral or anything. So I was like, all right, I haven't gotten roasted on Twitter yet, but yeah, people just think that it's undermining to fully Black people, but I'm like, it's not to say that I go through what someone who has darker skin goes through, or less privilege that I do due to other things like socioeconomic factors, gender identity, etc. Like, it's just to say that we have a lot of similar experiences, and that's it. And that's who I find that I get along with the best. A lot of people have asked me, and I'm sure they asked all of you, like, where do you feel like you fit in? Do you feel like you fit in with other mixed people? Personally, I don't even know a lot of other mixed people, to be honest. Like, yeah, I went to my high school had like 7,000 people, and I can probably name like 4 mixed people that I knew. So like, I just mostly fit in more with people that grew up in fully Black people that grew up in predominantly white areas.
There was another mixed family when I was growing up, but they were literally by racial standards Black. Like, you would look at them and not even think that they were mixed, but they had a white father. So their experience also was different than mine. You know what I mean? Sorry. But yeah, so sorry, that was my kid who was talking. My bad. But anyway, what do you think, Micah?
No, I just think that a lot of times kids too, if they grow up in white families in racist situations with white family members that are racist, they can feel shamed into denying their Blackness, and then it can just spiral, and you end up with people that are constantly speaking out against the Black community, mixed people that are constantly speaking out against the Black community because they, like John said, they're trying to be accepted by their white circles. They're trying to be and that's why I have such a passion too for the people that are, it's like concerning to me, like if a white family that is racist adopts, a Black child, or, like it, because it creates such identity issues, huge identity issues. And it's something that I feel needs to be addressed more often than it is.
Okay, I do have a question. I do. So I did make a TikTok about this before as well, because I don't necessarily agree with most of the time white people adopting Black children, just because I want them to be, to know about the culture, everything that they've come from. But, I do know that there are white parents that do have Black children that do help try to put them in the community a little bit. But I do think it's hard when they don't have a home life. So is it wrong to just completely for white people to just adopt Black kids in general, or just any ethnicity in general that's not white? Because I kind of want to know what y'all's thought.
Speaking from experience, I mean, my parents, they're white, but they were very aware of their situations, and their intentions in adopting me were not about exoticizing me or exploiting me. It was about them becoming a better anti-racist and treating me like their kid, but then becoming anti-racist themselves. Like, it was an enriching process because it was out of pure love and it was unconditional. And of course, like, as parents, they experienced the same adversities that I did because they had to take on that mental load when I would come home and have to experience all of that. But I think it takes an active anti-racist to adopt a kid, a person of color, BIPOC, and bring them up in a very rich environment. It's hard. I definitely see your point.
So I know we're gonna wrap up in a little bit. So I want to bring this up. And this is actually where I found Q at. A post where Mixed Girl, I guess, was upset because people were talking about how, you know, having a white, there's a difference between mixed kids who are raised with a white parent and those who are not. And I was so like, wholeheartedly got where Q is coming from, because there is a difference. I have a white mom, but that wasn't my experience. But if it was, then oh to hell well, because there's a difference to me. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I only know the experience I had, but I think my experience is a strange kind of different. So like my mom got put out of her house when she was like 13, and she ended up living in Harlem from the time she was 13 all the way up. And so like my mom was white in appearance, but my mom was so entrenched in Black people and Black culture. I'm not talking about today's Harlem. I'm talking about Harlem in the 1970s, where no white person would dream of living there. So like my mom worked in a Black hair salon sweeping the floors when she started. And like she only dated Black men her whole life. And all of her friends, not just some of her friends, all of her friends were Black. So like my mom was like, and sometimes it made me uncomfortable, but nobody batted an eye. Like my mom wore Nefertiti earrings and had platinum blonde cornrows, and nobody ever said anything. So like, you know, my family, my dad's side of the family was like, oh, well, that's just Kay. She's the Blackest white woman I ever met. So like, I was raised by a white parent, but not a typical white parent of the 70s and 80s. You know, like my mom, and there's a joke, there's actually one of my TikToks, it's a joke, because my mom sat me down one day because I told the teacher that my mom works nights at an after hours joint. I didn't know what else to call it. I was like 6 or 7. So I said, my mom works at an after hours joint. And so the teacher brought my mother in. And so when we went home, my mother was like, look, John, you can't be telling these white people anything. White people cannot be trusted. And I looked at her and I'm like, but you're white. She goes, don't ever call me that again. And it was like, you know, I was confused, but I had in my head, I think it's set in my head that every white person except for my mother is dangerous. And so, you know, it got really confusing for me. But so I don't know what it's like to be raised by, I guess, a lily white parent, a white parent that has no cultural awareness. You know, my mom swung a hot comb in our house. So like, I don't, you know what I mean? I hope this makes sense, but like.
No, I understand what you're saying. While my mom was not that type of white mom, she just was not the type of white mom who I don't see so much with white fathers, but like with white women who are mothers tend to not understand that you have to raise a child of color differently. There's so many different things to consider: hair, heritage in general, preparing them for, you know, the world's not going to see you like they see me type thing. And while my mom, I mean, she raised me as a child of color. She did her absolute best, as much as she could as a white woman could, you know, so I have to give her that. But for the things she couldn't, she put me in spaces where I was around people who could, you know. So my hair might not always been great, but it was done. If she can do it, somebody did it, you know, like. But I just think the fact that there's that sensitivity level, like, oh my God, I have a white mom. My white mom was not like that. Yeah, my mom won't either, but I'm, like Q said, that's very much like, not all men, very much all lives matter, very much like, what's the point?
Like if my mom was alive today, she would probably have gray cornrows right now. And people would be like, why do you act like that? You're white. Like, I don't know why you cultural appropriate. My mother would be like, look, motherfucker, I don't know who the fuck you think you're talking to. You know what I mean? Like, she would be like, I don't know what all of this shit is. And so I don't know what it's like to be completely, like, I lived in predominantly white neighborhoods at times, but I don't know what it's like to be so entrenched both outside and inside my home. You know what I mean? Like, I was entrenched in an all white school when my mom moved us out of the projects. And I remember being scared. Like, I walked in the classroom and I was petrified for no reason. And when I got home, my mother said, "So how was school?" And I said, "Mom, like, everybody has blonde hair. Like, everybody. Like, there were so many people with blue eyes. Like, I was nervous. I felt like I walked into like the Twilight Zone. I was like, there are no Black kids anywhere." And I immediately got nervous. And I don't know why. I guess it's because the only white people I had ever known was the welfare lady, the police, you know what I mean? The social worker, people always trying to split up the family, people always trying to see if we're doing something wrong. And I'm like, now they look like everybody. And so I felt really scared, but my mother just cracked a laugh and she goes, "John, don't worry about them white folk." You know what I mean? She said, "Just keep smiling." And so I was never really engrossed in it, you know, because my mom was constantly reminding me that we're only here for the good school. And once we get you done with this good school, we out. Like, we only doing this, I'm just trying to get you out of the projects. Like, we ain't staying here. You know, with our time off, we're going to Harlem, we're hanging out with the family. This is just temporary, you know? And so I didn't recognize that privilege until way later in life, that me by myself, without any of my siblings and my white mother, we assimilated in, you know, and that's what I say about incognito. Like, we snuck in there, I went to their good school, and we got out, you know?
I think it's important to also like think about, like, just because like I understand, like, culturally, like, your mom grew up in a Black environment, and while she may like culturally be like Black, like, because she's white and because the world sees her that way, like the way she like looks at the world and experiences it is still through a white lens. Just because you are closer to Blackness doesn't mean you are necessarily Black. So that's why, like, in that TikTok, I was saying, like, yeah, just because like you have a white mom, like, that definitely means like you're going to have a different experience whether you have a Black mom, because like the world looks at you differently and you're going to experience it differently. So like, yeah, I get, like, yeah, your mom, like, she was cool and everything, but like, you know, I think this applies for a lot of the people too. It's like, you can get close to Blackness, but you still can't be Black unless you are Black. So just to keep that in mind. And that doesn't necessarily just apply to you, but like everybody who has a white mom that's like still cool and, you know, raises you in a Black environment.
Anybody else want to chime in before we wrap up on anything?
I just wanted to say one thing for it. I do think it is different having a white mom, especially as a girl, with this stuff, because there's a lot of things with beauty standards. As I said, I already mentioned the hair. You know, it took me a long time to love my own hair, even though it's like the ideal type, you know, that we're taught that's the ideal type for the Black community and things like that. But I just wanted to know, like, or not know, I wanted to say that, like, you know, things like fetishization, like, it would have been easier to know and learn about that stuff if I had a Black mom. Instead, I had to actually experience things to understand, you know, how everything went.
Definitely. I completely agree with that because, like, my first experience with being fetishized was on online dating, and it just felt off, but then you couldn't really bounce it off someone else because they don't realize, they can't, like, relate to you. Like, you know someone's language when they're using it, asking, like, what do you mix with? Like, the way they ask it, the questions they keep asking after that. They're like, why are you so interested? Like, why do you want to know exactly where I'm from in terms of, like, my heritage? And I'm like, are you trying to exploit me for, like, something else? And usually, you know, you have that implicit feeling. It's the gut feeling. It's hard to, like, talk with other people who don't experience that.
Yo, so we didn't really talk about it tonight, but we were gonna be talking about having white partners. And so my recent ex-wife was white, and we were together 5 years. When one day we were driving through Oakland, and she saw this one young woman, and she was like, she's just so exotic looking. And I was like, babe. And she was like, what? And I said, no. And we had to have like a 2-hour discussion, and it wasn't an argument, but she just kept saying, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm like, how did I not know this about you? Like, how did I not know you were oblivious? Like, she was like, I don't understand, you know, like, I just, and I was in the, like, I just never heard her say anything like that. So I was like, wow, even, you know, even being this close, you can still be racist. And, you know, and so I was blown away, and it did take a shift in our relationship.
Yeah, you gotta think, like, unless you purposely like look for things to be like, unless you purposely try and be anti-racist, you are probably going to have either anti-blackness as a black person, or be racist as a white person. Like Jane Elliott said, like, it's a miracle if you're not, because there is systemic racism set up in our education system, in our schools, in the media, and any place where there is a representation of people. So shit, even in cartoons with animals, you know, you're gonna find like racism and things like that. So unless you're purposely rooting out racism in your own life, then you're gonna exude it.
Do you think that being mixed has any bearing on activism?
What do you mean by that?
Because I know I've heard that I should not try to speak on certain things because I am mixed.
The only thing I'd say to be careful to speak about is like dark skins, like in a dark skin experience.
Yeah,
but
well,
like,
see, I'm careful about the things I do address and things I talk about because of that reason. Like, I don't ever want to speak over anybody, even though I am Black too, because there's a difference. You know what I mean? But literally, it could be something as small as, I forget what I had said one time. I literally think I was calling out this white guy for something. And it was a Black guy who said me doing it is like this, it was the police thing that happened in like Fairfax, Virginia. And the guy commented, he said, you reporting about police brutality is like the slave master's wife talking about the mistreatment of slaves.
Doesn't make any sense.
But I don't think it makes sense either, but I get comments like that a lot.
Yeah, I would just say ignore those comments, and like they hold no validity.
That is true. I just didn't know if anybody else like got comments when they spoke on certain things.
I do tend to take a back seat. Like, I show up for the protest, but I never get on the boat. Only because I think that is the platform for darker skinned people to have their voices be heard. But when it comes to, and this is something not a lot of people do, mixed or otherwise, I do welcome white people to DM, to have those dialogues of like, well, why this, or why that, or why is this racist? I don't mind having those conversations, because I think navigating white communities for so
Hey,
long.
John, I think you got to mute yourself. Sean.
Yeah.
I think Sean, yeah, okay, there you go. Go ahead, John. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, so I tend not to speak at the protest. I tend not to speak when there's other Black people in the room, because it's like there's no need for me to preach to the choir. It's my time to sit back and also hear the experiences of my darker skinned kin and what they're going through. But I do use this privilege because I know that when speaking to white people, it's more receptive coming from me. I'm more than aware of that, right? So I use that. So I do walk into the uncomfortable conversations of 20 against 1 and have those conversations because I think it's just where my skills are best utilized. You know what I mean? When it comes to helping them make change, you know?
Absolutely. Sean, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to completely agree with you because I feel that definitely like in an intersectional identity or being perceived as more white in a society, you have privilege and you have to recognize that in intersectional privilege and use that to maybe like leave a door open for someone that needs that space to speak from that experience. And I've been realizing my privilege on my platform when I talked about birth control. And I was like, wait, I need to have other women speak on this with me, not just me. And I was like, but why are more people being receptive to this material if it's a guy talking about birth control? And it's like seeing all of this happening, like, no, stop this whole production. Like, I shouldn't be the ringleader for this. And then you realize how much privilege you have, and it's like a whole, I guess, this system. But it's a different conversation. It blew my mind.
Absolutely. So Dom, I had saw you had unmuted yourself. Was there something you wanted to say too before we head off?
No, I'm good.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and wrap up this episode, but there's a couple people who I know want to go ahead. Since you guys are over there on YouTube, you could follow them on YouTube. Dom, you want to go ahead and let everybody know your information?
Yeah, Dom Clark on YouTube. Go follow me. I'm gonna start making more videos. I haven't posted in like 2 months, but don't worry about that. I'm gonna start making more. So
Yeah, and she's fucking brilliant.
Yes.
She hasn't talked enough tonight, but she's brilliant.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. And Sean, also, you have a YouTube too? You're muted.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I always do this. Yeah, my YouTube channel is the same as my TikTok, Sean SVV. I'm going to be tackling more racial issues because they're so complex, and I feel like 60 seconds is never enough on TikTok. Even with 3-minute videos, no one stays for 3 minutes.
I've been having a good turnout for my 3-minute videos. I will say that so far, but I get tired of watching 3-minute videos from other people sometimes too. So I get it. And that's kind of the purpose of too, like why I like to have these conversations with varying people about different stuff, because I feel like a lot of people, especially with so much that's going on in the world right now, that sometimes these things don't get talked about solely because there's so much going on everywhere else also. So it's just good to have a space, you know. Is there any other things you guys want to, I don't know, merch, YouTubes, anything?
I got a podcast,
All right, tell everybody what it is and where to find you.
anchor.fm/BlackFluidPoet.
Oh, easy enough. Anybody else? No, we good?
I just want to say thank you for having us. We appreciate you having these discussions, especially as mixed people. I don't think we have experienced a lot of other mixed people in our lives, just like day to day. So it's really cool to be here with y'all, especially mixed people who are educated. So thank you, Ab, for hosting us. We will definitely be back if requested. So yeah, appreciate it.
I'm gonna talk to y'all about that in 1 second. You want to say anything, either of the Micahs?
Just thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us. I agree with Q. Like I feel like these discussions need to be had more often, and for you to have this space for us is awesome. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad y'all actually, you know, it meant a lot for you guys to come to have the talk too. So I definitely appreciate y'all.
Okay, I think this is truly my first time ever really getting to talk to other mixed people about my experiences. I have mostly Black friends, but it's not necessarily the same experience, of course. And I admit I have privilege, but it's been so nice talking to you guys. You know, I watch all of y'all, love all of y'all. It's been great. Thank you.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and get off the YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. And I will put their YouTubes and BlackFluidPoet's podcast information in the chat.